Hello, I'm Karen Goldberg, and I'd like to begin by saying that when Sydney first approached me about joining her in presenting this workshop, which was actually planned for 2020 and then canceled due to the pandemic, I have to admit that I was entirely daunted uh, by the whole idea. And although I've practiced social work for 47 years, unlike Sydney and some of the other participants, I've never lived outside of the country. I've never even traveled that many times out of the country. And I hadn't worked with trafficking survivors. Um, however, I had worked with trauma, and I had worked with trauma in many forms: physical abuse, sexual abuse, complex trauma, relational trauma, and the developmental injuries that came as a result of that. So the fact that I'm sitting here in front of you today, first of all, tells you that Sydney was a wonderful coach and very effective in her skills. And what I fell back on in order to prepare the presentation was my curiosity, which was part of what brought me to social work in the first place, and also realizing that I could use my training and experience to generate some of the questions that a clinician faces in trying to bring culturally sensitive trauma treatment to trafficking survivors. So after a period of reviewing some of the literature, material from workshops I had attended, as well as reflecting on some of my own experiences with clients, what struck me immediately is that trafficking survivors present us with culturally influenced and a very complex mix of traumatic experiences. And these challenges seem to crystallize into three main themes. One relates to recognizing the need for assistance and restoring safety. The second has to do with developing or redeveloping a sense of trust in the self, psychologically, physically, spiritually. And the third involves restoring faith in humanity and the sense that one belongs to that humanity. So in the next several hours, we're going to be inviting you to look with us at these three themes and how they form a dynamic interplay with each client. The world has changed a great deal since this workshop was conceived, and the impact of COVID-19 has been felt across cultures, resulting in a whole additional layer of trauma and lifestyle changes. Also, with the evolving landscape of diversity, equity, and inclusion, I think we're prompted more than ever before to scrutinize the way we do our work and make sure that we aren't intentionally or unintentionally offending, or in some cases even adding to the trauma that clients have experienced. And I think one of the things that we're learning more and more about involves the importance of dialogue to address these practice challenges. And fortunately, we don't have to begin all over again. And I think, as you'll see, some of the work that was done in Nepal by Move for Change relied on techniques that we've developed over the last 20 or so years, which was really an evolution of trauma treatment in and of itself. And now, so we have that to go on, so that now we can use our creativity and our awareness to ensure that they're used in a culturally sensitive manner. Now, study after study has demonstrated that the therapeutic relationship plays a very important role in treatment outcomes. And we often talk about this in relation to transference and countertransference, empathy, communication. But I think it's also important to consider that on a meta level, there's also an exchange of energy at play between the clinician and the client that we may never completely understand. But I think that if we approach each client with a genuine curiosity and open-heartedness and bringing our cultural and bringing a culturally informed attitude, we can also enhance the energy of the treatment alliance. So it's our intention in giving this workshop to meet the goals that you've seen in the course description, but also to raise awareness about trafficking and offer you some experiential opportunities to bring together the theory and the practice. And so for this reason, although we're going to present a PowerPoint slide, I'm not going to go through each point on the slide, but rather highlight some of the material that's there. And then you'll be given the copy of all the slides, so you can go back and look more closely. But what I'll do is pause for a moment so you can look at them and then go on to make my comments about each one. Finally, before we go any further, I want to remind everyone to take care of yourselves during this presentation. If you need a snack, if you need to use the restroom, please do so. In addition, some of you may experience the material as triggering. So if you need to step away for a few minutes to take a break, that's perfectly acceptable. You can come back and restart the presentation, perhaps after taking some time to use some of the self-care strategies that we're going to be looking at toward the end of the workshop. So the workshop that you're about to see is divided into 3 sections. The first deals with the theoretical underpinnings drawn from the information we have so far about culture, trauma, and trafficking, and applying that then in the second piece to assessment, goal setting, and treatment strategies. And finally, the third piece is going to be about self-care considerations, which more and more we've come to realize is that it's just an absolute necessity to preserve our own well-being and the quality of care that we're offering. You'll also have an opportunity to view a video that demonstrates movement as an added movement as an adjunct to the verbal processing that goes on in the room. You'll see how this was done actually in Nepal. You can think about how it might be done in an office setting. And hopefully you'll have an opportunity to talk with other colleagues about what you're seeing. I also, before going further, want to say that Sydney Frommeyer has been the inspiration and the backbone for this entire workshop. And after her many years of clinical social work practice and coaching practice, as well as leading the treks to Nepal, which you heard a little bit about, which she developed to add meaning and purpose to the participants' lives, but also then for the participants to contribute to adding that meaning and purpose to the people they met in Nepal. Sydney isn't going to be speaking during the remainder of this workshop due to health reasons, but she is a presence, and I think her spirit remains with us, even though at this point she's not able to use her voice.